Coming to you live from a simulated version of us coming to you live. We're coming at you from a simulation within a simulation of a simulation. And we're all inside Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast.
Who knows what's real anymore? I don't.
I don't know. I don't know what's real, what's not real.
What twists may come.
I love that movie. Robin Williams, it's in his finest role.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Travis.
Hey, I am Brandon.
Welcome to another episode of Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. It's another episode. We got so much stuff to talk about this week. Settle in, folks. Hopefully you have a long commute because we have plenty to discuss this week.
The thing about it is we have more than what is in this episode to discuss, and we made the call early on. You know what? Let's not do that in this episode.
It's true. Like this is the filtered down version. So if you think this is a lot, just think of what got cut. What didn't make the cut for this episode. And if you have issues with what made it into this episode, there are plenty of ways that you can reach us. First and foremost, hit us up on Twitter at Rick and Morty Pod. We have a subreddit, rickandmortypodcast.reddit.com. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/Rick and Morty Podcast. Emails. We're still taking emails, rickandmortypodcast@gmail.com. And then, of course, you can get T-shirts like this one on our TeePublic site, apatheticenthusiasm.com/shop. And thank you to everyone that is continuing to support us on patreon.com/Rick and Morty Pod. We had our first hangout this week. Do we want to talk about that up top, or is it somewhere down in the 3 hours of show notes that you've got?
It's at the
bottom. It's in there. Okay. Well, we'll get to that in short outs a little bit later on. Brandon, you ready to do this?
I am. Before we get started, I have a little poem that I came up with, and that I wanted to say and really submit for everyone's approval. Okay, Travis, are you ready?
Yeah.
I mean, I
feel like this would have been a lot better if you'd have just said it and we would have pressed on.
Yeah, well, I know, but you didn't. I was expecting you to do it, and then you're like, "Oh, you ready?" But we didn't move, and now I'm trapped, kind of backpedaling and trying to salvage what we've lost. Okay, winter's gone, innocence lost. 57 days, still no sauce.
It's time for semi-pertinent news.
Bang it, ding, ba-ding, ba-ding, ding, semi-pertinent news. Bang, ba-ding, 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 semi-pertinent news. Yeah, cha, cha,
Ha cha cha! All right, this semi-pertinent news brought to you by Funko. No, it's not. No, there's no Funko news. Thank God. That's semi-pertinent.
Holy shit! Yeah, we don't have any Funko news. This is great. We're actually happy because we don't have that much time to cover that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But this was a pretty big semi-pertinent news story over the last couple of weeks. Rick and Morty still out there winning the awards. They took a few Annie Awards, which is an animation award show for anyone that's not familiar with the Annies.
Oh, that's what Annie stand. I thought it was like a Michael Jackson award.
Like Annie, are you okay?
Yeah.
It's not a Michael Jackson reference. No guns were gotten, and I don't have any other Annie. There were no orphans in it either, as far as I know. I didn't attend. But yeah,
Grandpa Rick Warbucks.
Yeah,
Warbrick. I don't know.
But Rick and Morty won the top TV honors at the Annie Awards, as well as an award for writing. I think Ryan Ridley and Dan Guterman.
Yeah.
I think it was for the Rick Lantis
Pickle
mix-up.
Rick.
Yeah, Pickle Rick took an award. I think that was like the best TV. One.
Yeah.
And
Rick
then
Lantis mix-up.
Yeah,
That's
Rick Lantis mix-up. So cool, good job, all you guys that we shower with compliments. every other week.
Yeah.
Congrats on getting even more recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on. So a recent YouTube video came out by a certain Whitney Avalon, who she's a creator of Princess Rap Battle, co-writes, produces a bunch of different battles, and writes her own comedy songs. She's been in a variety, IFC, comedy music, all. She's been in a ton of stuff, right? But anyway, so she came out with a Rick and Morty themed video called "I'm Fine," and
This dropped like I think like right after we recorded the last episode, or maybe just before. I don't know.
Yeah, or during, and
Yeah,
then
it could have been like at like while it happened.
yeah, and like we were distracted in that episode because we were watching this video.
I'm fine. I don't see you smirking. I'm not me seeking your love with my dependencies. Since I'm not a clone, that means I chose this and it thrills me. No nightmares about Fruity Land and how much you knew. My life is a dog.
So
Played with permission.
played with permission.
Just so we know.
We're throwing that out there because yes, it's played with permission. We reached out to Whitney about this video after it came out, and we wanted to talk to her and have her on. But you know, she's way better than us, and she has
super busy.
She's super
Totes
busy.
malotes.
So many great projects going on. But we got to ask her a few questions about it in email, and so she responded back to us. But yeah, I mean, so we asked her, you know, when she decided she was going to write a song about Beth, and what she came back with was talking about how the song actually started unrelated to Rick Morty entirely, just about a woman who runs into a dude at a coffee shop and he doesn't know when to leave, right?
Oh, okay.
But her and her collaborator Brendan Milburn used like a poppy kind of Katy Perry inspired backbeat, and Whitney realized that, oh, you know what, let me just do like a pre-established character. And as she perused around, she found that, you know, Beth is a really great character in that position.
Yeah, I think she fits that role pretty well of dealing with a guy that, you know, isn't maybe the best for her and maybe has an issue sticking around.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, then she rewrote the lyrics, storyboarded the video to include so many Rick and Morty references. And so then we asked also, based off the references, because the video is full of them, we noticed that there was a lot of like season 3 specific references.
Yeah.
So we asked, was it a conscious decision to go that way rather than the like go to historical ones? And turns out it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision, but since we're dealing, she was kind of writing the character around a post season 3 Beth.
Yeah.
It made more sense to have season 3 references more so.
Yeah, and I think especially with like even in the song, some of the things that she talks about are very much like end of season 3 type stuff. So if you place the character in that period of the show, I mean, you could throw in older references, but I think a lot of them, they feel fresh. So.
Yeah.
So, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Okay, let me keep track of that time. 8:56 is about when we stopped talking to each other because of internet. So then the other thing we asked, you know, if she going to do anything else Rick and Morty related, and again with the Princess Rap Battle, like she has visited characters before. She mentioned that Jim O'Hare from Parks and Rec was in her Mary Poppins versus Mrs. Claus rap battle.
Hey,
and
that's got me intrigued.
And so yeah, I for one would love to see her come back with some more Rick and Morty stuff. But she wants to say this to you, Unity. She's so proud that you know, people are out there enjoying it, sharing it, finding new Easter eggs, and saying it's getting stuck in their heads. And that's
high praise for I think any songwriter. If a song gets stuck in somebody's head, it's like, yes, Mission accomplished. Let's get a banner.
That Katy Perry pop. That Katy Perry pop. So
where can we find
again,
her, Brandon? Where if people want to see more, where can they go?
Well, I can tell you, Travis. So if you want to find her, if you want to listen more, if you want to listen to that whole song, if you haven't before, it's really easy to find her. She's on Instagram, she's on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Just put in www.insertwebsite that I just said.com / Whitney Avalon, which is WHITNEY Avalon, like Frankie, AVALON. And last, also Patreon. So www.patreon.com. Whitney Avalon. Go support her Patreon. She's
doing
so
the
much work
hustle,
in these
you
things.
know, not like doing the hustle
And flow.
but you know, like she's out there putting out content, writing original stuff, and kudos to her. Well done, and thanks for spreading the Rick and Morty love.
Yeah, and thanks for answering the questions and not just completely being like, oh, these losers. These,
Yeah, no, we really appreciate that. So go listen to the full track and let us know how many of the little bits you found in the video. Brandon, one last semi-pertinent, semi-news item. It's the Dan Harmon tweet minute.
It's a Dan Harmon tweeting minute when he's doing a tweeting thing. So it keeps the same kind of melody.
Yeah,
but I might change the lyrics. Okay. All right. I'm changing up the Dan Harmon tweet minute just say a tweet with out of context and not talking about it any further than this. Okay.
Perfect.
If you're feeling down today, keep in mind that at one point the quality of life was so low for so long that the most accessible benchmark for comparing great things was sliced bread.
That's on my Dan Harmon tweet minute.
That's on my whiteboard at work.
That's solid. Oh, I should start putting quotes on my whiteboard at work.
Nerd.
Jeez. All right. Well, that's the semi-pertinent news, and as everybody knows, when that's out of the way, it's time for the main thing.
Yeah, it's the main thing. It's the main thing. The main thing. The main thing.
Really brought it home at the end there, Brandon. Excellent work. So I found a typo in our show notes, but season 1, episode 4 is M. Night Shamaliens.
Ooh, originally aired December 16th to 2013. Written by Eric Acosta and Wade Randolph, and directed by John Rice. I hope those are right again. I think we do this every week where I say, "Oh, is that the right?"
I don't know. It aired probably around December, maybe January 13, 14. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Somebody fact check it and then send that to Steve the Heeb on Twitter. All right. So what was this episode about? We've seen this one, dozens of times. But for those of you that did not get a chance to watch this episode over the last couple of weeks, this is the episode where Rick and Jerry are held captive by aliens in a virtual reality that is M. Night Shyamalan style. So Rick attempts to escape multiple times, only to discover that there are multiple virtual realities encased in one another. However, despite system glitches, Jerry remains completely unaware while trying to sell his advertising slogan for apples. Rick finally games the aliens by giving them a fake recipe for concentrated dark matter. I improvise one word, and then it doesn't flow with the sentence. But the concoction that they were trying to get from him, the aliens send Rick and Jerry on their way and later explode because they gave him a faulty recipe. It's a pretty classic ep, Brandon.
Yeah. You know what I like about this episode is all the twists, and because and to start this episode off, to start the discussion about the twists in this episode, let me tell you about a little twist I found out just right now on the Webernets. Okay. It was directed by Jeff Myers and Pete Michaels. It was written by Tom Kaufman. Eric Acosta and Randolph were staff writers. They are also in the credits.
All right. And when did it come out?
January. It came out in January.
What a twist!
What a twist!
Ah.
Yeah. What?
All right. So there's a few extra show notes we need to fix up, but yeah, I think the synopsis is pretty spot on. The content of the episode hasn't changed over the last 8 years. But yeah, so I mean, this. You talk about the twist in this episode, but I think watching it the several times that I did, getting prepped for this episode, the level of twist and the times that the plot kind of folds in on itself, where Rick thinks that he's escaped a simulation or things like that, and sort of the way that the aliens are constantly watching him and like sort of pulling a fast one on Rick, who we figure out over the course of the show is pretty smart, and it's pretty hard to fool him. Yeah, like there are some really decent twists in this episode.
Yeah, no, I like that, they obviously it's M. Night
Shamaliens, yeah.
Shamaliens, right? Well, I was trying to say what his real name is. Shyamalan.
Shyamalana Ding Dong.
Shyamalan. So having all those twists in there, and then for a long time the shame part of the shame aliens, I didn't necessarily get that until maybe last year after we started this podcast, where I was like, oh, because they don't like naked people. It's like shame aliens. They don't.
I guess that's could be
Look,
a thing.
You thought Ridley like totally planned out the.
He did. I still live by
granted. Take it for granted.
He totally did.
Like, come on, you allow me a stretch. You can have a stretch. I can. Have a stretch.
All right.
Anyway,
let's go over some production notes.
So a couple cool things in here. Art director James McDermott, color lead Jason Bosch, background painter Carol Wyatt and Zach Bellissimo did the character design. They did some really, really awesome work in this particular episode. In Reddit, they talk about the 4-armed aliens and how difficult that actually is to create, and with it not looking wonky.
Yeah. Which after we read that, I think we both went back, kind of watched the episode specifically looking at how the extra arms were moving, to kind of get a gotcha on them or something, and be like, oh, okay, so he's excited, so all 4 arms are going up in the air, but now he's thinking, and like one set is crossed and the other one's like pointing. Like, yeah, it's just having an extra set of appendages. I would assume that's difficult to plan out how to act out the characters.
Yeah, exactly. Like if we're thinking, like, if I'm talking right now, people use hands in a specific way to convey certain meaning and information.
Sure.
Well, what do you do when you have 4 arms? Yeah. I mean, I don't have 4 arms. I need to work out more.
Yeah.
Anyway, so props on that. Also, the simulation effects took a lot of processing to actually animate and render, which for folks in Reddit, they're saying that they went out to Obsidian for Oblivion and Red Dead Redemption to grab some of what glitching looks like.
Oh yeah,
to get the animators to be like, like this is what a glitch would like to do.
A lot of those glitches though, like, just remind me of back when I used to play online games with a really poor internet connection, and like early 2000s Counter-Strike, where like somebody would like freeze or whatever, and like their character would just be like running towards a wall, and they're just like still at the wall, still running and stuff like that kind of stuff. Like, it just takes me back to that period of gaming for me every time I see this episode.
Yeah, or like when we're playing PUBG and then your computer craps out, and then you just keep running in one direction for. You
know what? It's a viable strategy, and I've lived. It's worked out for me every time. All right,
I get shot and die, and somehow they're like, he's glitched clearly.
Clearly. Why is that guy just running through a field?
I thought this was interesting that this was actually the third episode in production order. The Lawnmower Dog, Rick Potion #9, and then this one. Um, so I thought that was interesting. Just and I think we've talked to Brian about this. We talked to maybe Ryan Ridley a little bit about this. Just when they knew the show was going to make it big, and we talked about serialization. I think with Ridley, and he talked about like they knew they wanted to do some of this stuff earlier on in the season, but because of episode orders, actually airing orders, it seemed like it was later in the season for us. But
yeah, and I think we talked about this just as we were discussing the episode, getting ready for the podcast. But this outside of the pilot, this is the first episode where we see something that takes place like off Earth or out in space. Every episode up to this is kind of kept it local, either with like the Inception thing or with like Anatomy Park. So this is the first like opportunity outside of the Gronfalmites where and like international or interdimensional customs, where we actually get to see like a new alien species and see like how they have like what their interaction with Rick is. We realize he's got a bit of a reputation, or he's got people out in the universe that know who he is and are trying to get something from him. So the fact that it's 4 episodes in, like I don't feel like it's too late in the season, but it is nice to finally start getting some of that sort of off Earth stuff that becomes pretty popular later in the show.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that between this episode and Meeseeks, this is when the series really started. Like Anatomy Park obviously is great, but and Lawnmower Dog, but like this is like when the show started getting like catchphrasy, or maybe not catchphrasy, but quotable.
Sure. Okay.
Notable quotables. That's the category that I'm starting.
Potent potables. Yeah, no, it's definitely. I realized watching this episode that there's things I say that came from like this episode that I completely forgot what was a Rick and Morty quote.
Yeah.
Totes malotes. And then also just like, the animation, like some of the scenes and some of the like within the ship and some of the things that are happening, like they're really pushing the levels where you see like a notable like boost in the quality and like they're just continuing to push the limits with the show.
Yeah. Like the glitching of the people whenever like there's like those kind of blue streaks going on.
Absolutely.
And then when they transfer from the simulation, the first simulation to the next level simulation, and it's a treadmill, and it's showing Jerry's part of the simulation where it's like making like lasers as he's driving along.
Right. Yeah.
It's building up the simulation as it's going.
It's like you see all this like wonky like geometry that eventually becomes like the actual simulated environment. And like when he calls Beth, right? And like it gives you the split screen, and then the split screen is like materializing as he makes the phone call. I really like that moment as well.
Just think about what, as for me, somebody who can't really draw, imagining what it takes to animate that specific kind of like glitchy type building up a simulation, like that's I don't know how hard or easy that is, but it seems really cool.
I would assume it's not something that you would do normally, like within your given style, and so I think it does like challenge a new aspect of the artists and to try and do something a little bit different. But I think they do a great job in this episode.
All right, now let's move on to some Reddit discussion posts, Mr. Travis. First up, want to lead away.
All right. So this is the best day in old Jerry Smith here's life, and it was a simulation running on bare minimum operating capacity. So in general, is Jerry too pathetic to identify with, or just pathetic enough to identify with? Yeah. What is your hot take on that one?
Is he too pathetic to identify with, or just pathetic enough? Yeah. I think we've said this early on in the podcast history when we say like, oh, which character are we? Which realistically, which characters are we most likely to be? And as Travis leans into the camera with his Jerry-esque face, um, you here's the thing: we said it before. Jerry is a dumbass, and he's a pathetic dumbass. But in any other show, he would have been the fat husband with the really hot wife sitcom, right?
He's the everyman, right?
He'd be the Peter Griffin, right? Just like somebody who's just really stupid and pathetic.
Yeah.
But Rick is there, and Rick is the show ends up having us kind of be on Rick's side more so because we all want to be smart. We don't want to be pathetic, and we want to. It's kind of human nature to want to laugh at the imbecile, right?
Yeah. I think like getting to the root of the question, is he too pathetic to identify with? I think there are times when he pushes it where you're like, okay, come on, Jerry. Like, but I think it's his ignorance to situations for me is too pathetic to identify with, but his emotional reaction to situations, I think I can definitely identify with. I know if I'm in a situation where I'm in a meeting and I'm leading the meeting and it goes well, I'll walk out of that meeting just like just like yeah, I did it, I crushed it. Now maybe the rest of the people in there were like, God, what was he talking about? But for me, I was just like, yeah, crushed it.
And then you hop on your phone and you say, Sheena, I nailed that meeting.
I've got an erection like an East Coast lighthouse. I want to share it with you.
So I mean, I don't think he's too pathetic to identify with. I think there's parts of him that are just the right amount of kind of sympathy for him to identify him. And I think some of those weak parts we generally don't want to identify with, and we kind of want to be like, no, yeah, what an idiot. But in the back of our minds, we're like, yeah,
I'm an idiot.
I'm stupid sometimes too.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fun parts about this show is everybody wants to relate to Rick, but none of us are really a Rick. If we were, we wouldn't be listening to us on a podcast. We'd be doing much more. We'd be launching heavy rockets into space and shooting cars at Mars and things like that. Like if we were that smart, but we're not. And
we're not.
That doesn't mean we're Jerry's. That just might be that we're more like a Morty or something like that. I don't know. Morty's a good middle ground. Morty's there for us, I think.
The one true Morty.
All right. Well, let's move on to this next point. If you woke up trapped in a, what is it? Zygerian?
Zygerian. Like Nigerian.
Nigerian. That's right. Zygerian simulation. What details in your life would tip you off to the fact that things aren't as they seem? This is a tough question. Do you have a good answer for it?
Well, let me. I answered the first time last one.
Okay. Here's
I'm putting it on
as Rick would say, it's the sloppy details, Morty. Like it's the little things, right? I think maybe it wouldn't be until like 2 hours after I woke up that I'd realize, because the first like hour and a half of my day is very structured. I get up, I do the shower, I make the coffee, I drive to work, I clock in, I do the things, right? Like, but then I'd start like actually drinking the coffee and looking around and being like, wait a minute, his mustache is on upside down or something, like whatever, like that Pop-Tart shouldn't be driving in a toaster. But I think I tend to pick up on small changes. Even like, oh, someone got a haircut. I tend to like notice, even if I'm too self-conscious to say anything. So I think those little details would be what tip me off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess the answer is the small details, whatever random details they are. I for me, I don't know because every morning of my existence is just so completely different from the next.
Oh
no,
wow.
no,
Okay.
like oh, what time should I be at work? Oh, 7:30. Oh, it takes me an hour. Okay, I will then leave at 7:15. And oh, what? And because it's an hour commute, and the traffic is always so different, and I'm always so groggy in the morning. Like I wouldn't notice anything then. So it would have to be something with my family. It would have to be something with them.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
if they're asking me for concentrated dark matter, then I maybe I know something's up.
Maybe there's something. By the way, if you could send me that recipe, I lost my copy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
See them?
All right. So, Hungry for Apples, great ad campaign. You're wearing the button on your shirt right there.
Yeah.
Is it a great ad campaign or the best ad campaign? That's really the question here.
Let me just say the Got Milk guys, they don't have a monopoly on rhetorical questions. When the Got Milk campaign came out, and it had been out, is it still out?
No, I think they finally switched it to like Milk Life or something like that. I don't know. It's really
Milk
I've
Life?
I've stopped
Really?
getting wrapped up in the branding of milk, because you know what? I buy milk, and if I'm out of milk, I buy more, regardless of advertising.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, I
That
can't.
cereal's not going to eat itself, Brandon.
That's true. But I mean, you buy comics. They used to have like the Got Milk ads in comics all the time.
Sure.
All right, whatever. Anyway, so when the Got Milk advertisement and stuff came out, I thought, wow, okay, yeah, sure, I have milk. This is a weird ad.
But every once in a while, you're like, wait a minute, do I have milk? And it got you thinking. Got you thinking about that milk status.
But you know what it is? The Got Milk, and I'll relate it to Hungry for Apples here in a minute. But Got Milk wasn't successful just with the words alone, right?
Sure.
The Got Milk advertisement was for the witty commercials and the creative commercials and advertisements that came out.
Yeah,
with it.
and all the celebrities with milk mustaches in print advertising.
You remember that the Aaron Burr commercial for Got Milk?
I think about it every time I listen to the Hamilton soundtrack, which means I think about it all the time.
Who shot Alexander Hamilton?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's what made that advertisement
Classic.
successful. So let me just say, for Jerry, in his it's not that it's a bad advertising campaign. What it is he just sold it badly.
Yeah, terribly, awfully. I think he nearly vomits twice in giving his pitch.
Yeah, he's like, okay, as apples are a food. Excuse me, and then takes a drink of water real fast when he's just in the simulation.
My favorite part about Hungry for Apples is the like real life exposure that came after the show gained popularity, where you would see like posted on Reddit a sign in a grocery store in the produce section that would say just "Hungry for Apples?" ? Or I think they did some season 2 branding for the show where they actually put up billboards around LA that would say like "Hungry for Apples" and stuff like that. So the fact that it actually became a little bit of an underground ad campaign, yeah, it's the best. It's not just a great ad campaign, it's the best.
It is the best. It's better than Ford like a rock. I mean, because why would you want a vehicle that is
who wants to drive a rock?
That would be a small detail I noticed if Fords were actually rocks. Okay, with apples in mind, do you think there's enough diversity in the Appley Awards? And if so, what can future Appley Awards do to better help promote diversity?
Well, I think this is the right time in history to bring this up, Brandon. And I think that Red Delicious apples have been getting a lot of play, and they've been featured as sort of like the standard in apples, but there are all kinds of apples, Brandon. And the fact that Hungry for Apples features a red apple, really, like, it's 2018. I think it's time that we feature, the the golden, the Granny Smith. You know, like Granny Smith has been, you know, living in the shadows for too long, and so many apples have come since her. And I just think it's time that the Appley Awards, they have an opportunity to stand up for what's right.
That's absolutely right. You know, I can't even give a better answer than that. That is, you know, they should just have a picture of a bushel of different apples.
That's right.
You mentioned Red Delicious, and let me just add to what you were saying. I watched like part of a documentary, and it was talking about Red Delicious apples and how they're actually like genetically stupid versions of better apples, and they're not the best tasting apples, but
they're not.
But the government subsidized this specific apple to make it the most popular brand of apple, even though it's not the best.
Big business getting in the way of the Appleys.
Yeah,
Have you had
bureaucrats.
Have you had an Envy apple before?
I have not.
Friggin' delicious. All right. Moving on.
Tune in next week for our new podcast, Interdimensional Apples.
All apples, all the time.
And it's just us going golden. Golden. Is that golden apple? Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No. So getting back into the actual episode, at what point, Travis, did Rick know he was in a simulation, and did he ever realize Morty wasn't or was?
So the first question is an easy answer for me, because I think Rick knows he's in a simulation from the moment the episode starts. As soon as we see him, he has already figured out he's in a simulation, and the clues there are him dissecting a rat and talking about the sloppy craftsmanship and things like that. Like why is he dissecting a rat? Well, because he wants to see to what level the Zygerians like constructed the anatomy of a rat, because he's existing in the simulation until he decides to leave it at this point.
So I think obviously I don't disagree with that. I think obviously he knows he's in a simulation. He doesn't know what level of simulation he's in, or that there are multiple levels yet. That's what I would say. I don't think he knows that there's multiple levels of simulation.
I would agree with you on that. I think, and we'll cover this Morty question here in a second, but I think he plays it at a level where he's never, even if he's 100% positive that he's not in a simulation, he's never going to like just give over like what the aliens want. So
right.
It doesn't really matter what level he's in. He's always going to play it the way that Rick would play it.
Yeah. I'm with you there. And I do wonder, he's dissecting the rat in the simulation. I wonder what the
foreshadowing to Pickle Rick episode. I don't know. Just saying.
I wonder what it is, what the history leading up to this episode would be for him to get caught unaware and be put into the simulation, because they have to abduct him and they have to put him on the spaceship.
Well, I think if we look forward to future episodes like the Vindicators, like he's capable of getting very drunk and very confused about where he is. So, I mean, it's possible that, he went on a bender and ended up in a simulation.
Okay. Yeah, that is possible. Okay. So did he, when did he realize that Morty was a simulation?
So
right
this
there
is,
at the tail.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? I want to know, because I think I know my answer.
Yeah, I honestly think he is suspicious from the start. Obviously he's suspicious from the start when he's like, oh, ooh, just like belittling a simulation Morty there at the start, and I think he maintains that suspicion throughout the episode.
I questioned that, and I think it's one of the most like M. Night Shyamalan sort of aspects of what the Zygerians are doing in this episode, is because I feel like Rick goes from a point of thinking Morty's a simulation, not believing that he's real, and then the Zygerians do such a good job of simulating Morty that Rick does start to believe that it is him. And then once they go through a couple of, actually leaving the simulations, I think that guard is broken down for Rick, where he thinks, oh, like this is legit Morty because we just left a simulation. A simulated Morty wouldn't be in a simulation, so or be able to leave it. And so the fact that 3 layers later, that Morty glitches out and disappears, they do make a point to like show a reaction from Rick in that moment where he does genuinely seem a little bit surprised and then really pissed off that the Zygerians would make a simulated version of Morty's Wang. So I don't know. I think he goes from thinking he's a simulation to really believing that it is Morty, right up until he's shown that it's not.
Yeah, I think not. I'm not a Sith, so not dealing in absolutes. I think he goes from suspicious of Morty, a large percentage of thinking it's simulation, to a little less thinking that he's a simulation, but always errs on this. Is always more on the side of he thinks Morty's not real, because at the very beginning of the episode, Rick follows him to school. And, there's a scene with Morty getting the math problem right, kind of. You're right, 5 times 9 is...
like at least 40.
At least 40. That scene is meant as a kind of a misdirect for the audience. It's not meant for a misdirect for Rick, because
But in a way, it works that way, too, I think.
Well, no. So it's a misdirect for us because we're watching what we think is Morty, and Morty's in this situation, and so we're like, oh, Morty is finding out that this is a simulation, and everything's a little off, and then it pans over to Rick, and he's in the window saying, "Interesting." But I think that Rick was there the entire time, just still observing the whole thing and being like, okay, and we'll see where this is going. Like, I don't think he.
My only counter argument to that is I feel like Rick truly believes that his one way of avoiding being surveilled by the Zygerians is to get naked, right? And so that's why he pulls Morty to the showers, and that's why they're walking around with no clothes on. It's because I think he thinks that Morty is really Morty, and like, if he thought Morty was a simulation, why would he go to the level of doing that and then continuing to like bring him along for the rest of the adventure?
Yeah, but so in my opinion, I think that he knows what the aliens do. Like, he knows that they are monitored, right? He knows that he's being monitored inside a simulation. So anything that he does when he's not naked, he knows that they're watching him. So if he's outside Morty's classroom and he's watching Morty interacting with all these students, Rick should know that the Zygerians are watching him. So it's not like a secret thing going on.
All right. Well, okay. So I think we're split on this one, which means it's a great opportunity for you, Unity, to hit us up on Twitter or Facebook or over on the subreddit. Even head to the official Rick and Morty subreddit. There will be a post about this podcast episode. Let us know your thoughts. Let's continue to have that conversation online.
Online. And let me just ask. So, follow-up question with that then. I'll for the sake of this question, I'll go that he didn't know the entire time. So, when did he realize that Morty was a simulation?
When he glitches out and disappears.
Okay. Now, having asked that, why would he give Morty the recipe for an explosion if he didn't know beforehand that Morty was a simulation?
Well, because I don't think, I don't know. Does it explode as soon as he pours the water in?
So
I don't know.
Before he finds out Morty's
I think it's because he's still playing it like he's still being in a simulation. I don't know that he thinks Morty's a simulation, but I think he still thinks that there's a level of simulation because he says like, oh, and he throws out three ingredients that most likely wouldn't be in a random spaceship in the back.
Yeah.
Right. And so when he says, oh, how convenient, how lucky that, and he says it sort of sarcastically, like, oh, how lucky, like that to him is like an immediate cue. He's still in a simulation because those three ingredients wouldn't be back there if it wasn't.
Okay. So here's, if I'm going your route, I think that he will think that Morty finds out Morty's a simulation when he says, what is it? Cesium, 2 parts cesium, 1 part crap, something else. And then however many parts water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he sends Morty into the engine room to get that stuff. Why would Morty necessarily know what those ingredients are and what kind of bottles they look like? And he comes back so quickly.
Exactly. And so
you said when he glitches out. That's all I'm arguing.
Okay. Like, maybe he thinks, maybe that's the moment when he decides that it's not Morty, but I don't know. Like his reaction when Morty glitches out is angry enough that maybe he figures it out in that moment, and then it's confirmed with Morty disappearing, and then he just gets really pissed. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, he intentionally gives them a bad recipe, so at some point before that, he knows. So that's all I want to say.
All right,
that's all I'm saying, Travis.
Write the comments, write the posts, people. I want to know what you guys think. We did get a preemptive response from one Chuck Punch over on Twitter, who asks who our favorite simulation characters are. Who's your favorite simulated individual, Brandon?
My man. I'll do that.
My man.
Yeah. Yes. That's Jerry's boss is my favorite simulated character. In part just because I quote him a lot, even to people that don't know the show. Sometimes I have people that work for me that come into my office and they ask me questions, and I will use this as a tactic to get them to leave, where I just yes until they're gone. And then I glitch through my desk and walk into the corner and keep moving. So.
Yeah, like your legs turn backwards and then you walk that way first. It's really between my man and yes, it's such a good way to get people out of the office and just be like, yeah, these decisions made. I don't care, even if I don't do that line. Yes,
yeah. It's also a great like inside joke sort of quote from the show. If you have people that you work with that are fans of the show, you'll do the like snap yes to someone who doesn't know what it is, and like odds are someone if they're overhearing your conversation will get a chuckle out of it.
Yes. Absolutely right. Okay, thank you Chuck Bunch for that question. And hey, like I promised, I would try to answer your question on the
We did
podcast.
it, sort of.
I remembered to put it in there. Favorite bits now.
Favorite bits. The first one I have written is Jerry's boss saying yes, so I think we've covered that one succinctly.
Okay, well, what's your next one?
Just overall, I think that the fact that Jerry's whole experience in this episode, we didn't really talk about the fact that there is an A plot, B plot in this, but it all exists within the same umbrella of the simulation. But everything on Jerry's side, where everything is like turned down to that 5% CPU power, and he's oblivious to all of it. The guy in the meeting room who stands up and shakes hands with no one, or like just like when all like the same three characters are repeating in the background as he's walking down the street. It takes me back to like the old like Flintstones cartoons where you'd see them running and the same piece of background would keep going by. Like it's like just all those little things that you maybe don't pick up the first time. Really nice touches throughout the episode.
Yeah. I agree with that. And great point about the A and B plot essentially being the same plot. It being like the localized kind of environment,
right?
Because in other episodes we see, like with Meeseeks we'll see next week, like the Smith family is doing something completely different than what Rick and Morty are doing when they're going on their adventure.
Right.
So great point. My first favorite bit is the Baker Street song by Jerry Rafferty. That is, let me just say, like, I love that song on Grand Theft Auto, the recent one. Like, whenever that song comes on, I'm just like, I blast it.
Yeah.
I'm just driving through, running down pedestrians.
I like that they play it for real, but then later when like Rick is just basking in his own brilliance, and he's just like,
yes. There's really, I mentioned last night when we were playing games, I was like, oh, I have a good thought, a good point that I want to make, but I'll bring it up on the podcast. So here we are. The first time we hear Baker Street is when Jerry's coming out of the Hungry
his
for Apples
advertising office. Yeah.
success, right? And he's like, it's playing the actual song, and then at the end, Rick just does like an improv version, a really crappy improv, like a Brandon version,
Like a Brandon new
version.
segment version.
Like not me, like doing him, like he's like doing my thing. Well, there's a point made wherever, Reddit or somewhere else, about how Jerry's life, his like ultimate goal, succeeds in a 5% power, right?
Yeah.
And Rick's life is so complicated, and so there's simulations on top of simulations, and it's such a good like juxtaposition. Jerry's life is so simple, and he has the actual song, and and Rick at the end mirrors it with this whole convoluted series of events, and then blah 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 blah. I think that's such a cool tie-in throughout the episode.
That is really cool. Yeah. All right. Other stuff. I like how Rick overloads the simulation using complex rap lyrics. I just love the idea, like, of just messing with the code and throwing in like weird math and stuff that would just cause too much computing power, and that's what shuts it down. But I also like how that ties into the next scene where everything is frozen, and we go back to Jerry's with Beth, celebrating his victory.
and our arms are just up in the air.
And you hear him mid-coitus saying hungry for apples. So my challenge to you, Brandon, and I mean anybody really listening at home, is bring that into your home life. Try that the next time you're intimate with a loved one.
Please.
And see how it works out.
Yeah, please let us know, and send us a tweet, an email. Let us know how you did.
That's enough, Brandon.
I still have it.
Why do you still have it?
There's 40 seconds left.
Nope, that's good. So Totes Malotes dog. That's a great line. Throwback to one of our early episodes talking about butthole flaps. Let's keep that appointment going.
Yeah. That was another bit on there. Yeah, with David Cross saying, no, go ahead and keep that on there. Actually, move it up.
Yeah,
move that appointment up. I like the real quick voiceover by Maurice LaMarche from Pinky and the Brain. He does the voice of Brain. He's one of the aliens randomly inside the ship. Something I watched, there's a transition where it's going from Jerry's simulation to Rick's part of the simulation, and it's the camera like quick pans to the left, and then there's like a real quick shot of two Zygerians in a bathroom, and one's washing his hands and the other one's sitting on a toilet reading the Planet News. and I pause it. It's so quick. It's like one frame, and the one on the toilet is wearing pants. Like he's got his pants are completely on. So I thought that was a really cool throwback to them not liking nudity. So.
Very, yeah, I mean, yeah, that could be a thing. I want to talk real quick about the green 0G sort of creature collection chamber on the Zygerian ship. We talk about them pushing animation and doing things with the background. There's tons of little like enclosures where we just get silhouettes of different creatures. I was trying to pick out if there's any recognizable like shapes or characters in there, and it turns out that there are some Plutonians hanging about. We actually get a shot from behind one inside one of those little cages, and I was like, oh wow, that's a cool thing, I'll throw that down. And then like the next scene, they're doing a montage running through the ship, and there's like 2 more Plutonians like kicking a ball between each other or something. So we have no idea, first airing of this, who those creatures are. But I kind of like that they're in that episode before we actually get to the point where we're, visiting what is or is not a planet.
Yes, sir. That's definitely like when you're looking at all those silhouettes, and I think like in Morty's Mind Blowers, when you're looking at like the cages too, you're like, show me some hidden characters, some cameos.
Where's the Mickey Mouse? Where's he at? Who's getting sued?
Yeah, like I think there's a silhouette of a Gromplemite in some of those. So my last favorite bit is the Pop-Tarts driving a toaster car, and Morty saying, why would they want to live in a toaster? That would be like the scariest place for them to live. and Rick saying, you're missing the point. And Rick saying you're missing the point should go into like, this is a simulation, Morty. But Rick's missing the point is, no, you're missing the point. Why would they drive a miniature toaster? Like, do you drive a miniature version of the house?
Which I like. That conversation too speaks to the weird twisted meta of the entire episode, where a simulated Morty is questioning the quality of the simulation that he himself is a part of. Like those details, when you really like spend enough brain power thinking about it, that's where you can really get mixed up in the Shamalian-ness of the episode.
The Zygerians, they can afford a dual core system, dual core processor.
That's right.
All right, so that's what we have. Do you have any other favorite
no,
bits?
I mean that's the big stuff I wanted to hit on. Overall, I really do enjoy this episode. I don't know. I don't know that it's like top 10 or something for me, but I do feel like it is a very it's a real quality episode, and I think it's one that you can point to early in season 1 where you're like, all right, they're figuring out like some of the pieces that are quintessential Rick and Morty here, and I don't know, I just there's a lot for me to love in this episode.
Yeah, totally. It just continues the streak of like a really, really well written show. And when I used to hawk my fandom on people when season 1, season 2 came out, like this is the type of thing that I meant when I said the show was intelligently written and really creative and witty to suck you in. So,
absolutely. Well, that's our take on this episode, but I'm sure you guys have plenty more that you like about the episode, or some things that maybe we missed. So definitely hit us up on Twitter or over on Reddit, even on Facebook, wherever you're comfortable. Send us an email. We'd love to talk more about this episode and maybe feature some of your comments in an upcoming episode. All right, Brandon.
Yeah.
It's transition time. Let's force this transition.
All right.
Roll the music.
Ooh, you crushed a can. Hell yeah.
Yeah, but there's still beverage in it, so like I didn't want to fully crush it because I don't.
Can crusher, better you than me. Yes. So this week we have Fart versus Mr. Meeseeks, the battle of the Censure Week. So before we get into the actual results, a few comments from Unity out there. Daniel J Films over on Twitter. #Team Fart. I love Jermaine.
Hey, who doesn't, right?
Who doesn't love them?
Flight of the Conchords. Coming back out for another touring. I think they might be doing something else with HBO too. Don't quote me on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
bless. Oh, stay still, my heart.
They're also working on what's the what lurks in the shadows, or what's that?
Yeah, what we do in the shadows.
What we do in the
too.
shadows. They're
But
working on a TV version of that, aren't they?
maybe, but the sequel is going to be based off of the werewolves.
Ah, all right. Well, stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Inked Inspector, our friend, Mr. Meeseeks aren't born into this world fumbling for meaning. He is created for a singular purpose. If his sole mission is to kill Fart, well, he's going to make it happen. Waves of kamikaze Meeseeks.
Nice. Data kiss. Fart. Easy win. Summon all ye Meeseeks you want. The fart is inescapable.
At Ape Richmond, Fart could implant the memory of Mr. Meeseeks, completing his goal. He's the only being in the multiverse with the power to beat a Meeseeks.
Oh, and then so lucid.
So lucid.
Fart can go out with a musical number. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He is not wrong. Thank you for your submissions. Here's what happened, Travis. You want to read this, or you want me to read it because I wrote it and it was really long.
I think you should read it because I'm just gonna screw it up.
Okay. Let me go ahead and preface this with, man, it is really hard. That is a really hard. So I apologize to everyone ahead of time. Okay. Sit back in your seats. If you're driving, just tilt the seat back.
Yeah.
Not many know the history behind how the Galactic Federation got a hold of Fart. A few years before we meet him in Morty Night Run, Fart was scouting the universe in preparation for his invasion force. With reports from various planets about a being that could transmute matter into other versions, the Galactic Federation's interest was piqued. After hunting Fart down, an elite team of Gromflemites, the Gromflemite Force, is what I wrote, was completely decimated by Fart, changing them into blocks of lead, turning them against each other, and melting their guns. Just melting their guns. Like that part didn't kill them. Listening over the communication relays, the Galactic Federation president, shocked, called his chief of staff into the room. "Bring me the briefcase," he said, sternly. His chief of staff, Hlokor, brought in a blue box with a single button on top. "Do it," he whispered, sternly. I added those sternly parts. The next day, while Fart hummed a melodic tune, a battleship flew overhead. Out of the ship, a blue figure jumped and came screaming toward the gas cloud, yelling what seemed to be the figure's name. "Meeseeks?" Fart asked. I can't do Jermaine's voice. It's unique.
Nobody's expecting that to be bad.
Mr. Meeseeks landed in Fart, but Fart wasn't phased. Fart turned the Meeseeks into ice, yet could tell that the Meeseeks wasn't done trying. Fart turned to the battleship flying overhead and zoomed up to meet it. He flew into the cargo bay of the ship and noticed a single Gromflemite, adorned with medals, holding the blue box. Adorned with medals, because he's like really decorated. He's a combat veteran, I'm assuming. A Gromflemite.
Clearly a veteran of the Gromflemite Force.
Yes, exactly right. "Now we've got you," he said. Why does he sound like that? He said, and hit the blue button repeatedly. "I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me." "Capture that creature." "Ooh, we can do," is what the Meeseeks says. So all these unified Meeseeks start after Fart, and Fart starts attacking them. But despite their numbers, the Meeseeks can't overwhelm Fart. He's just too powerful. But the sheer amount of Meeseeks does annoy him. So he decides, I'm going to turn my attention to the box. And if I can destroy that box, maybe I can destroy them all. But here's the kicker. Before he could attack the box and its holder, a single Meeseeks dressed like a scientist sneaks over. His eyes are sunken and his face pocked with stubble. He looks broken, like he'd been alive for years. This Meeseeks was carrying a weapon. Suddenly, Fart gets shot by scientist Meeseeks and is stunned. As hard as Fart tries, he's unable to change the molecular structure, unable to move, completely immobile. The Gromflemite leader laughs. "Meeseeks are here to fulfill a single purpose. They'll go to any lengths to complete it, even if it means creating a device to subdue you." A Meeseeks puts an electronic device around Fart. Ooh-wee. And the Meeseeks disappeared.
Very well done, Brandon. Very well
done. It's hard, man. That's
a tough one. That's
a
tough
story to tell.
Yeah, but the votes were in 38 to 62 in favor of the Meeseeks over on Twitter and 28 to 72 on Facebook. Also rooting for the Meeseeks, not making it easy for us, but yeah, how do you do? I mean, obviously Fart doesn't die, but he's definitely the loser in this fight. And how close to death can he really come?
Yeah,
we may never know.
Well, so when the votes, well, really, whenever I didn't actually do the generator and pick these randomly, I didn't realize what kind of task I was setting aside for myself. But like, Fart is dead already, so I came at it with like let's not have it be him being dead. Let's have it be like a prequel to Morty Night Run,
yeah.
right? And then
Yeah, that's true.
somehow do it like that. And there was a part in there where like I tried to have like him attacking the box, and like if Meeseeks, maybe their box is destroyed, then they disappear.
Who
But
knows?
Like
Who
I
could
didn't have
say?
I didn't have that much.
We're still waiting on the actual writers of the show to follow up with the Meeseeks episode. But yeah, thank you again. Oh, go.
Oh, I do want to say one last thing. The whole prequel thing actually came to my mind because in Morty Night Run, when they're at the Blips and Chits, right? There's a Meeseeks in the background of that. And
yeah.
So originally I wanted to like try to work that in there, but I didn't.
Hey,
it did not do that.
I can't fault you for that. Very well done. Very well written, Brandon. And well told. I enjoy the impressions as well. Solid Meeseeks impressions.
Shut up. Next week, here it is. Drum roll. We have Blim Blam the Core Block versus Water Tea.
Yeah.
Blim Blam versus Water Tea, not iced tea. Water tea.
Water tea. So hit us up. Let us know who you guys think. We're gonna push this poll out probably right around the same time that the episode is released. So look for that over on Twitter and on Facebook so that you can get your votes in. Let us know who you think will win.
Get them votes in. And now we move on to listener suggestions and shortouts, brought to you by Brandon and Travis.
That's right. And brought to you by all of you sweet Patreons still supporting us over on patreon.com/Rick and Morty podcast. I have to scroll up for Rick and Morty pod. Yeah. I have to scroll so far up to see the beginning of the show now. This week we got to do our first hangout sesh for those folks that support at the $10 level or higher. And it's kind of a blast. Big thanks to Justin for showing up. I think I got that name right. I'm super good with names.
Did. Yeah. You are so good. You finally got my name right, Travis.
That's right, Brandon.
Yeah, no, it was super cool. We hung out. We talked about just really we went beyond Rick and Morty, and it was a hangout in the truest sense of the word. And so we really appreciate Justin for not only supporting us but also talking to us and not thinking that we're really just gigantic pieces of shit. And
all of you that don't think that, we appreciate. Also, while we're talking about Patreon, they added a new feature. So if you are supporting the show on Patreon, grab the mobile app because they added something called Lens, where it's basically like Instagram stories for patrons. We're gonna be trying to throw some additional behind the scenes stuff up over on there. Maybe Brandon will grab his phone and shoot a lens like right now. I don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But yeah.
I'm drinking water.
So look for that, and just thanks again to everybody over on Patreon. Next up, we have Twitter. Thanks, Twitter people. Alex Richmond asked last week, what beers do we drink when we record? I think we mentioned some brews in a previous episode and wanted to know what we were drinking. I think last time I was drinking a Shiner Bock, and you had like the blue can of Bud Light. Like dilly, you son of a gun. What are you drinking this week?
This week I'm drinking an India Pale Ale, Orange Blossom Brewing Company. Back in the day, IPA. It's a Florida local beer, craft beer.
Congrats.
Pretty good.
Last night during our live hangout, I was drinking some Stone Brewing Company IPAs, brewed and bottled in Escondido, California.
Solid.
Kind of right between where both of us grew up. But tonight I'm going La Croix to be even more pretentious than an IPA drinker.
That stuff tastes like aluminum. So
it's growing on me. It's growing on me. What can I say?
We do want to say thanks to any and everyone who tosses us in their follow Friday or share on Twitter. We appreciate the heck out of that.
Yeah, all of you guys that tweet about this podcast, it really helps the show kind of expand our reach and grow into a bigger audience. So thanks to everybody that continues to support the show on Twitter. You guys are the best.
You're right. Even Billy King XXX. He keeps tagging us in so many posts.
You know the thing is, like, I was going through our Twitter responses for the last couple weeks to just for this segment, and there is a lot of traffic in there. So hey, thanks.
Thanks.
Moving into emails, Tyler Tigno brought up an interesting question in a recent email, and I don't know that we're properly prepared to answer this, and I think it starts with a lead-in question. Brandon, how familiar are you with Doctor Who?
My wife would leave me for David Tennant in a second. Hey, wait a minute.
I'm telling you right now, if David Tennant came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do a podcast with you, but you got to leave Brandon." I'm sorry. No, I want to do it. I want to do it.
No. Just for an episode or
at least an episode.
So I know Doctor Who. I know I have a passing familiarity with it. I have Wikipedia'd it and tried to catch. I know what some of the
you're picking up the wave top pop culture elements from it, but you're not a diehard Whovian.
Like the Daleks. I know some of this stuff.
I've watched probably a season or two of Doctor Who. It's one of those shows that I've always wanted to watch more of, but I haven't. My wife just never got into it, and so it's one of those shows that I have to watch by myself. And that's, Rick and Morty already takes up enough time. So, but I'm vaguely familiar with Doctor Who. I get the concept of the Doctor, and which brings us to Tyler's question. Who, sort of like a Blood Dome Battle League situation, Rick versus the Doctor, who would win? That is a serious question.
Time Lord versus basically a god. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, according to Rick, I
don't know enough Doctor Who to make a case for or against it necessarily. And I do want to answer. Maybe I'll ask Chelsea, the wifey.
Yeah, I feel like the Time Lord is very powerful. I feel like the Doctor, the fact that he can die basically and come back as someone else, he's kind of got that over Rick. But
Rick has clones.
Rick, Rick can do the same thing. So, for the sake of this being a Rick and Morty podcast, I'm going to say Rick. I'm gonna stand by it. But Unity, let us know what you guys think. Have everybody answer Tyler's question. We want to know who you think would win in a fight, Rick versus the Doctor.
Yes.
Finally, a couple of reviews. Brandon, you wanna shout these guys out?
All right, MC Arven. I could say Mick Revan. There's so many pronunciations I could go. They write, just found the show and started it from the beginning, and I'm really enjoying it. Thanks, guys. Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. I don't know how to do that.
Thank you.
There it is. Delay 31. I felt delayed at 31 as well, and at 35, I'm still feeling that way. You guys are hilarious and play very well off of each other, Travis. I stumbled upon your podcast and have been listening to it ever since. Actually, he didn't put the ever in there. Listening to it since. Even when you two get off topic, which we did a lot this episode, it is still funny and entertaining. The fact that you guys make up the intro music as you go is awesome. Keep up the great job.
People love people love that intro music. I don't care what some listeners say, Tyler.
Different Tyler.
Different Tyler. Not Tyler Tigno. No. He knows who he is. But yeah, thank you guys for reviewing the show. Thank you guys for your continued support. We are more than happy to shout you guys out in an episode because you guys do so much to kind of keep this show alive and keep it going even in the off season when Dan Harmon can't sign a freaking contract. I mean, more power to him, but he's, make the show, guys, please.
57 days. No sauce.
Yeah, and this is it for the old M. Night Shamaliens episode, and then next time it's Meeseeks, baby. It's a classic.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, so many people consider this episode to be their go-to intro episode for people if they're introducing the show to other people. Do us a favor, go and check out that episode, watch it again for the first time, and let us know your thoughts on Me Seeks and Destroy so that we can chat it up in a couple of weeks.
That's right. Or just go to the YouTube video where I do the episode as Rick live in front of a Comic-Con audience.
Yeah.
Shout out to Justin, who actually was there, and I somehow stayed for the whole thing. So
yeah, congrats. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next week, I'm Travis.
Until next time, I'm Brandon.
You're not Travis. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Yeah. See ya.
This dance is only for the video listeners.